Welcome back to People and Purpose podcast, where we explore how values and purpose driven leaders from around the world are driving positive impact and reshaping work, communities, and society from the inside out. I'm very excited to have a guest today whose journey feels especially relevant for the themes of this podcast. Our guest today is calling in from Sweden. She's Annika Sten Pärson. Annika is a social entrepreneur, investor, board member, and a mental health advocate with more than 25 years of experience in senior executive roles across media, retail, telecom, and consumer goods. After decades in the corporate world, Annika pivoted to follow a deeper calling. She moved with her family to New York, retrained in mental health and philanthropy, and then co-founded a Stockholm-based nonprofit clinic, 1825, a therapy center for young adults, servicing a group that could not be more important and is often overlooked. In 2025, Annika helped launch the Inner Foundation, committing to invest into solutions that advance inner health, especially among emerging adults, and embed diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging across sectors. Annika sits on boards of change-oriented organizations, including StrongMinds, World Childhood Foundation, and Ashoka Nordics, and continues to combine practitioner, investor, and strategic systems roles. Wow. Warm welcome, Annika.
Thank you, Tarja. Um, that was such a great introduction of myself. I'm going to steal those notes from you afterwards. Thank you.
It's a fantastic journey that you have. So let's start by understanding a bit more about your life journey. Can you tell us about your personal journey, the life chapters that have shaped who you are today?
And continue to shape who I will be, who I am, and how I've become, I guess. For I think that's the number one thing, and constant learning and shaping that's what it's all about. But I think you, as I said, you explained very well. I think sort of that it's been a sort of for professional me. It was a change for many years in the corporate world, learning and the hard way of sort of the corporate life. Owned by different, I was in companies owned by private equity. I was working in an organization that was sort of cooperative background. So I think that's for sure has shaped me to be able to work in the corporate field with a lot of male-dominated positions in leaderships, management teams that were mainly male and whatnot. So that's clearly one part of me. And of course, my upbringing, I was born here in Stockholm, but lived my life until I was approximately, went to university, the age of 18, in Uppsala, which is a university city north of Stockholm. I have a mother and a father and three siblings, an older brother and a younger sister and a younger brother. So kind of a big family. So there was the two of us, Fredrik and I, was sort of the big ones, and my younger one was the smaller ones. It was like two teams. Yes, I moved away from home quite early. I actually was a year in the US when I was 17, and then never really moved back home, but stayed in shared apartments with friends, and then went back to university, and then went back to university. Yeah.
Hey, what are some of the key learnings or key principles you bring with you always, no matter where you go or what you do or what is a role that you step into?
I think it's fair to say when it comes to my background that I also I'm adopted, and I would not bring that up if it doesn't really, but it does make sense for who I am and always been, but also think the sort of change of my work is very much informed by that, to taking that into my professional life, because I think that feeling of I know I share that with many in the same position. I shared, but not all, to say that I have always carried with me a feeling of being excluded and not because I was excluded at any, that's not what it is, but it's this thing you're sort of carrying with you. And I think for me, that has also become, it became a driver for change for myself. Really high level of energy, sometimes compensated a lot with actually not really knowing, but putting a lot of hours into things in order to really step in to be part of something. So the belonging part has been really, really a big driver for me. In good times, it's been good, but it could also, of course, be kind of tiring and it has many faces, I think.
But that, I guess that's also something that has really driven you from the corporate life to make that change, to really start driving.
Yeah.
I think that's something a lot of people think about. I think many people really want to do what you are actually doing today. So maybe that background is giving you that foundation that helped you make that change.
I also think for me, when I have, it has, it's also been seen as a huge privilege and opportunity, because there are a lot of change makers out there that would like to do it, but maybe not having the platform to actually do it. Exactly. We very intentionally decided to move to New York in 2013. It started actually with my husband and I wanted to do sailing around the world, or be really brave, and that ended up that we were brave enough to move to New York. And but that was important because we have, at that time, our daughters were 8 and 12, and they also adopted. So adoption is the it's the normality in our family. So we wanted to give them another opportunity to look at the world through another pair of glasses, which is much more diverse than the sort of the city center of Stockholm at this point, at least at that point. So that was a very intentional move. We thought, let's do that for a year or so as an adventure. That was sometimes partly quite tiring adventure, because moving your family is not something you do in a heartbeat. At least we did not. So we decided, we stayed for more than 5 years. And that was also the starting point for my being brave enough to do huge change in an environment where I could have nothing to lose. And really, I think New York is an amazing place to do that, because the way you're going to be surrounding with people that are not in any way thinking that you're probably not going to be able to do it. It's the opposite. So what is yours? What do you want to do? What's important? You should meet that person, or maybe you should look into that. Or, I mean, in New York, it's a soil for change, I would say. And I took it on board fully, but again, I also had the opportunity not to work and have an income similar to what I had when I lived in Sweden. So I also think that's important when we talk about who is actually change makers. And a lot of change makers do not have that opportunity, but they continue to do amazing change. So, there are different types of change to be made. Sort of.
Yeah, and a lot of times you need to have that possibility to slow down and really reflect where you want to go. And
yes.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's not very easy for people that are in their busy roles and really going from one day to another.
Exactly. And sort of also having sort of, I think part of me, and I said it many times, that those years in New York City forever kind of changed my sort of changed me a lot, because I felt that part of me that I wasn't really taking any space, because I didn't think it was good enough. It was not sort of, all these ideas you have what you're supposed to be versus who you actually are. I think those years in New York really made me more stable in a way that I think I have, you have a couple, I can sort of stay much more comfortable in the uncomfortable that I was able to do before, spending those years in New York. And I continue going back. Our kids go to school now at universities now, and continues to give me that sort of feeling of being in the uncomfortable is actually comfortable, sort of, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, you would also, I think, give an advice to people that take that step, and if you have the possibility, go somewhere else, and you will see things differently, also in terms who you are.
Yeah, I think it's and you don't really need to go, as far as over the pond, to be honest. I think it's more a matter of, and I think you mentioned that when I came back to Sweden in 2018 and started my first sort of social entrepreneur journey and starting 1825, a therapy center for emerging adults here in Sweden, I also went back to school and became a basic trained therapist. And today I'm practicing. I'm a volunteer therapist at 1825, and sort of devoting my once a week to do therapeutic work, and also have supervision. And in therapy, we talk about change your perspective. And I think that's what I'm actually saying here. How can you, even though you stay in the same physical spot, how can I actually change my perspective? I kind of have to move all the way to New York in order to really make that happen. I don't think that's necessary, actually, but the intentionality of really wanting to look at the world from another perspective. I think that's what's really, and all of us can actually do that and have the curiosity to see what would that look like, And in the therapy room, we even sort of move from one chair to the another, just to sort of physically see how you can see the room differently from one chair versus from another chair,
Yeah. Yeah, it's, Annika, I also 1 week ago graduated as a solution-focused therapist. So
I didn't know that. That's amazing. Congratulations.
yeah, so I'm fully with you when you're talking
Yeah.
about the therapy and how it has the impact. And what you just shared, the concrete example, how you change chairs actually also helps to change the sort of thinking. But if we talk about the inner foundation and your role, and the inner foundation focuses on inner health for emerging adults, you combine investment, philanthropy, and ecosystem building. How did you come to see the inner health as the core frontier?
I think it came very much from the inner, honestly. As I shared, I've been, throughout my life, I've been seeing therapists on and off, and that's always been very important for me in different sort of transitions in life, and that started quite early. So moving to New York, having this opportunity to see, what can I engage in. I did some pro bono work, and then I get a sort of a real job in the sector. I become a CEO of a mental health clinic in New York City, supporting vulnerable women during the family building years, meaning anxiety and depression during pregnancy, could be losing a child very late, miscarriage, or postpartum depression. And an amazing team with clinicians supporting vulnerable women. And of course, I had a clinical director next to me with all the clinical sort of expertise and whatnot. And so starting to work there and bringing my own experience in, and also the way I became a parent with my children and how we build a family, a lot of things sort of came together. And I think also seeing New York City from the lens of this organization, the Selene Institute, was also this was, I guess, a wake-up call. I mean, sort of, right? I came to be introduced to part of the city that you usually don't see, and I certainly haven't seen similar parts in Sweden. But, I mean, they do exist as well. So Selene took me in a very sort of fast and very sort of sometimes kind of a, it was sometimes not so comfortable, honestly, to understand that it's not about like mental health during that period of time happens to everyone. But if you, in addition to that, also struggle with other vulnerabilities, could be socioeconomics or family trauma or whatnot, it clearly multiplies. And having, seeing that firsthand, realize that this is not just an individual issue for a number of women. It is very clearly a systemic issue. So taking myself, my learnings, and also my own family, and with our sort of things going on with different perspectives into the mix, it becomes almost like a calling. Maybe that sounds a little bit cheesy, but it was sort of a calling that I cannot not do what I now need to do, because the cost of not doing it is actually too high, sort of. So moving back, I couldn't see myself going back to, you know, the traditional corporate world where I used to hang out. And again, I want to make sure that I also recognize that I was extremely privileged. I actually had the opportunity to do so. And again, sort of started with another family, 1825, and then wealth were coming our way into it, or will be coming our way. So sitting down with my husband in crime, and realize, okay, what is our responsibility now? And based on what we know and the resources we have at hand, our expertise and our way of thinking, could we make that into something that has an opportunity to actually address one of the largest problems that we are facing in the world right now, which is actually the lack of our inner health, which is a global crisis. It's not just something that happens in, you know, sort of pockets of the world. It's like it's across the board. And so we decided, so early 2022, we founded the foundation, the Inner Foundation, which obviously now 1825 is part of the portfolio of organization and companies that we support.
Yeah. And it's not a very easy field. It's very meaningful to do that work, but it's not very easy in a way, an easy work. So maybe my question to you is that how do you practice your self-care and inner gathering in your life when you're working with this demanding?
I was afraid you were going to ask that, because then you have to be like serious soul searching in terms of how do I practice, and I think this, you know, I'm aware, obviously, because I speak to potential investees every day. We look into, you know, we are part of the community of other mental health funders and very sort of immersed into this sector. And we talk about the team here, and, you know, caring for what that looked like. And then in the end of the day, you have to sort of look into your, you know, look at the mirror and look at yourself, right?
Right.
You're trying to, you know, you're hearing me now, right? I'm working towards myself. And I know I'm not always very good at that, because it's almost this sort of idea that there's so much that needs to be done, and who am I to slow down and, you know, sort of charge the batteries when the world is on fire, kind of thing, which is kind of a naive way of looking at it, because that's not the way it works. But it is a journey for me, and I have to put it into some kind of practice. It's not going to happen just sort of course, for me. So for me, it's a matter of hanging out with friends. So that sort of that part, and maybe friends that has not in the sector of mental health at all, like friends that we can talk about everything else, maybe apart from this, which is important. And then for me, and it's been more and more clearly for me that nature is a source for me, and nature, and even more specifically, water is a source for me. So whatever I can look at water, be in a kayak, living in Stockholm, it's a very accessible way of spending time, actually more or less 20, you know, full year, depending on how way you dress yourself. And so, and I also, of course, continue to see a therapist myself, and working on those sort of micro moments of maybe looking at the same Netflix series that you've seen 100 times, because it gives you some kind of familiarity and sort of slowing my... So there are, you know, I put a few things into practice, and I constantly sort of looking for others. But I'm not the type of person that goes away for 10 days of a retreat in silence. I always think I would love to be that kind of person. And I'm like, but then again, it's so much to do, right? So I don't know, maybe this comes out wrong. I'm working on it, and I have my things, and I think it's an ongoing journey.
Yeah, and I think it also boils down to having that passion for driving change. So as you said, it's not pausing, but really just committing to do the right things, but not forgetting that you also need the balance. You also need your inner health. You also need to sort of walk the talk and
Yes,
charge your batteries, which sounds
of
like
course.
you're doing in a really good way.
Yes, and of course, family, having your closest family, but also what I call sort of my chosen family, which is a extended family, people that know me for a long time, that I can be only myself, is of course the best way for me to to charge my batteries. But I think you're on something when it comes to walk the talk, and for us at the Inner Foundation, that has been very important, and it's also interesting to see because we primarily support organizations, builders of solutions for mental well-being, and with this specifically focusing on emerging adults, even though not all our investments are only with a target group of emerging adults, but it's always like a subgroup. It's important to start. You would think that just because you're building organizations and solutions for improved mental well-being, that everybody's taking care of themselves tremendously well. It's not, in the startup community, it's an amazing founders actually are struggling quite a lot with their inner well-being. And so there are a few things we have been done. We are supporting some studies to really bring attention to the lack of well-being in the community of startups. And we do that in a number of different ways. And in addition, we also have something they call the Inner Stipend, which is something that we everybody in our portfolio are sort of investees, or where we have invested in as a equity, have the opportunity to apply for a grant, a cash grant sort of, that they can use for their inner well-being, no questions asked sort of. And everybody who applies will receive it. And the only thing we ask for is to give us some kind of feedback back, not exactly what they've done, but in what way that has helped them, or if it has helped them, in order to really sort of support them in terms of supporting them in terms of taking time and space for their own well-being. So and it's nothing that we put on a website. Like this is not a PR marketing thing for us. It's a really what we think we can be a little bit of a catalytic. Please, use it for something that has to do with you. I think that makes sense.
That's a wonderful experience, and I think and I think it's a very nice bridge to also what we have been talking about, providing care for caretakers. So in your view, what does that look like in practice, if you could share a practical
Right, of course, I'm happy to, because I think this is important. It's almost like going upstream, right? How it is an ecosystem of support that's needed. And some of the organizations and people that work very much in the forefront of this also need support. For example, we support an organization in Ukraine, particularly with grants addressing supervision for clinicians working in the forefront of meeting people has been impacted by the war in Ukraine. It's called Pocket Project, an amazing initiative. Another thing that we just sort of went through the sort of application process is with an organization called AMNA, and they work particularly in supporting organizations that are working in the forefront of displaced communities and trauma or conflict, like replacement and conflict areas. And we have supported them with something what they call the System of Care Master Program. So they work on setting up a program for system of care, in this case for educators in Eastern Europe, at the in the universities, who sees students who really are going through a lot of trauma and carrying a lot of trauma. So in order for these teachers to be well trauma informed, to support them in their work of as educators, which is a really, I think for us, that was a really very fascinating by the work and very impressed by the work AMNA is doing. And to support this very specific program, System of Care Master Program, to support, in this case, the educators, seems very meaningful for us.
Yeah.
One example of supporters, sort of.
Yeah. What a meaningful example. And I think already in the field of education, there could be many more examples
Yes.
where this would be very, very meaningful and very much needed, I would say.
Absolutely, and I also think that's sort of the idea that mental health is like its own vertical, only mental health in sort of the healthcare space or system, if you like. That's certainly not the case, right? Mental health is like a component in so many other systems, education system or workforce system or family systems. And for us as a supporter or investor, that's important for us to recognize that.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So
Yeah.
to say, yeah. Well, I have one more question on when you are doing the strategic philanthropy and you're assessing an investment or grant.
Right.
Do you have some specific criteria or filters you use?
Yes, of course. I would say we are sort of, as we're doing both for-profit, equity, and non-profit grants, we are actually, and the process, the sort of due diligence, sort of the process of looking at many different organizations that applies for funding or equity from us, it's kind of a rigid structure. It looks very much like a lot of other organizations or grant makers or investors would use. For us, it's of course key, as we are a thematic investor in this space of mental health, and with a specific focus on emerging adults. That becomes, of course, very important to say, is there a mission alignment? This could be an amazing organization, but that actually do something that doesn't fit what we do. So that's, of course, is really important. And then you start by going down the list and very much, of course, looking at the founders or the sort of the executive director. Who is that person? What kind of experience do they have in terms of scaling and creating impact? And we call ourselves, and we want to hold ourselves accountable to be as catalytic investors as possible. Meaning, how can because in the scheme of things, we are a small investor in terms of what's needed in the world. I mean, they talk about a gap of 200 billion gap in the mental health space. It's a huge gap. And in that sense, of course, we are a tiny player, but how catalytic can we be? So for us, the readiness or to work with organizations or companies, early stage companies that has solving, what kind of problem are they solving, and in what way are they solving that problem, and is there a sort of business model which it's almost for scaling. Because for us, accessibility and affordability is key criteria for us. I mean, they could be amazing builders of solutions, but they might be for the very few. And we like it to be, we think about it as a importance of scaling. That is key for us. And of course, again, the leadership is crucial. And what are the leaders coming from? What kind of experience do they have? And, those kind of questions.
Yeah.
And also so again, the mature, sort of how mature is the organization, the readiness for this next step, and then of course, from a financial perspective, some of these are early stage. What kind of traction do they have also to attract other funders? We would never support an organization or being an investor if it's only us. It's always a matter of, and we take that as a key reason for us to also do the work to see to co-invest with others. Sometimes others ask us to co-invest with them, and sometimes we will be sort of supporting others or maybe engaging others to also feel that this is something that they would like to do. So I mean, and again, I think sort of ultimately, we like to support and back people that do stuff and have models that has the potential to actually shift systems, right? To really And something that we did not recognize in the beginning of our journey, even now we have a few years of experience, is that we also want to understand from the team in what way do they look at themselves as part of a larger ecosystem. Because even if they do their thing, how much are they sort of connected with other players in the field as something that they can learn from or build from, or sort of as a stepping stone for someone else? And I think that's become more and more important for us to really, or as we are sort of nerdy in this specific space, we also look for that sort of understanding of the context of the ecosystem they sort of operate within. That's been more and more important for us as a way to also vet potential investees.
Yeah. You mentioned about shifting systems and investing where also others are investing. You also talked about the leadership. And we have talked about, and you talk about also leading a movement. I think that also connects nicely. So can you talk a little bit about that? What does it mean to you?
And it sounds a little, pretentious, or sort of leading a movement. Who am I to say that? So, I get, maybe we talked about that, when we spoke some time ago. But I'm so senior now, so hopefully I can be of inspiration for younger people to sort of. But I think you don't just fix a problem. You want to be part of something. I feel like it's important to be part of something that has potential to actually change a kind of broken system.
Yeah.
And in order to do so, you have to be looking, but you have to be aware what kind of part of the value system is in the foundation working on, and me as a part of and the founder of that.
Yeah.
But also understanding that this is sort of part of a bigger thing. And I think to drive change, you need to do things and be aware of things that are sort of outside your own scope of work. And then it becomes sort of a movement. But I don't think I can say I'm leading a movement. That's something that has to be recognized from the outside in, right? So it's not just a label I can put on myself, but I want to be part of something that is, I feel the urgent of being part of something that has with some kind of sustainable approach towards making a shift, because it's so needed.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's actually about the mindset. It's about your purpose. And I think it's when you are, and as you are doing it, Annika, I think people will put that label on you. It's really also creating the inspiration you are,
right.
You are doing.
No, but I think you said it well. It's more of you don't walk around thinking I'm a part of a movement. You think it is very much a mindset of and you want to take that on board, sort of.
Yeah.
And also a mindset of, I think, in order for a movement to happen, it has to be so many more parties, right? So I think it's a mindset of thinking about collaboration first, and who else is part of this that I can join, or who wants to join what we are doing, and the other, and it's then it becomes a movement. And so I think is really, and I think we at the Inner Foundation is almost obsessed about who is doing what, and can we sort of hang out with people that are doing amazing things, and maybe we can then contribute what we can contribute with, sort of.
Yeah. Hey, if we shift the view now to look ahead and also the future vision, so what, in your view, is the most needed shift you hope to catalyze for the Inner Foundation and also the inner and mental health?
I mean, I think we're looking for this, in order for this to not be on the sideline any longer, which I'm actually thinking there is some really positive indicators, that meaning that mental health goes from being on the sideline to something that is actually sort of very crucial and center for what needs to happen in order to improve so many other things. A few weeks ago at UNGA, the UN Assembly that happens every year in New York City, it was very, still though I'm a newcomer in the space, for people who's been working in the mental health space for a very long time, you can clearly see now that mental health and it's now on the agenda for the UN, which is really, really positive. You see that organization that the World Health, the WHO is really driving it as well. They even have a specific commissioner working specifically on loneliness within WHO, which I think is there are those clear signs that this is not something that you sort of, and after, you put in sort of the last stage, you're actually putting into the core drivers for change in society at large. It's not just an individual issue, it's a societal issue. I think that's a big shift to take.
Yeah.
It's so and it has to be addressed, but in order for the other to happen, it's no longer individuals only, sort of. I think that's really important.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
It's, as you said, it's a societal issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for the listeners who actually have a calling to make an impact and they really want to start doing something around this, can you name some practices or mindsets that you would encourage them to focus on?
And to start with, impact can happen in many ways. Change can happen in many ways. So I think it has to start by again, soul searching in things that you are specifically interested in. So it's both going from inside out. What are the key core sort of stoppers for systemic positive change to happen in the world? That could be the climate issue. That could be in our case, the inner health. But there are many others, the whole education and the food system. And there are a lot of others, core important issues, and women's liberation and girls. I mean, there are many, right?
Yeah.
So, but sort of doing that, what are the key important things out there, and what am I as an individual actually care about? And I think that's a good combo to think about it, because doing, especially if you think about it as a philanthropic approach, it's really important to that you also something that you feel passionate about. I think that's crucial to do that. Yes.
Yes, so maybe crystallize in your own personal purpose.
Yes, I think that's exactly. And I think also it is important, and I think I want to make this point. I don't know if you're going to ask me, but I'm bringing it up anyway, because I think when you talk about philanthropy, I think it's important the way we phrase it, and many with us, talk about strategic philanthropy. And for me, it is, what can I say? It's a different, like, philanthropy is not the old-fashioned way of thinking about it as charity. It's more strategic. It's thinking about it almost like an asset class among other asset classes to move change. And to be strategic about what that could look like. I think that's important.
That's important, and I think that's also a really nice message for the different organizations and companies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have it as part of your strategy.
Yes, and it is, and also thinking about it as it's a way of measuring the outcomes of our investments as a philanthropy investment.
Yeah.
It has, how do you do that? Have an idea on that looks like, in order to be part of systemic change, because I think that's what strategic philanthropy is all about.
Yeah.
To drive that. Yes.
Yeah. I think it's time to start wrapping up our session. And I'd like to focus next on rapid fire questions to end with a personal note. So these are quick, shorter questions. So let's get into this. So can you, Annika, name a book or two that has deeply influenced you?
It's so hard to pick one. God. I just recently read the Book of Joy, which and it's not a book you need to read from A to Z, but it's a book about how important it is to drive change with joy, I guess. It's an amazing book. Yeah, that's a great book.
Such
I
an
read.
important
Yeah.
message.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you have a habit that you almost never miss?
A habit in terms. Can you help me with that?
Or something that you do every day, something you,
Mm.
I don't know, start your day every day with your
Yes, I think I do look at the water every day, and sometimes you are in places where there is no water, and then I have to take up a picture of the water, see, but I need I think that's having a view of some water and whatever that could look like. It calms me down, and then I take a couple of breaths, and that's sort of getting ready, sort of. That's important for me. Yes.
That's nice. Do you have a key question, principle that you keep returning to? Something that really helps, I don't know, drive who you are and what you do every day?
I think for me it's not a key thing, but I'm kind of interested in staying in the problem when most people wants to leave the problem, and that's the thing for me. I say it quite often. Let's be in this problem for a while, and that doesn't equal that I look at it as a problem. I look at it as an opportunity to stay in the problem. Because I think we have a tendency of very quickly look for solutions, and we have a tendency of measuring the activity of doing things versus what kind of problems are we solving, sort of. So I stay in the problem and be comfortable in the uncomfortable problem, sort of. So that's a lot of words, but for me that is, and I kind of thrive in problems, I think. And for that, I see opportunities. And then as a balance to problem, I also have this saying that I said several times, and but I really believe it, and it has to practice. That hope is a muscle, and it needs to be practiced. And because it's so easy because when I say stay in the problem and look at the problem, for me that is like, and by being at the same time driven by hope, you can actually really, that's for me, it's a good combo. And we need to, I went to a seminar the other day, and we are so like about the emerging adults in Sweden and their well-being, and there's a lot of issues, but how important is this to present best cases of things that works. And the idea of we need to be hopeful, because that's what this whole thing is about, right? To not just not being sick, but actually flourish. And we want that to happen, and therefore we also have to be change makers of hope as a driver, I think. So I guess
What gives you hope today, Annika?
I mean, I see amazing entrepreneurs doing amazing things. That gives me hope every day. I also gives me hope as a clinician, listening to young people in the therapy room, also have so much knowledge. They are so, even if they're, the guts of being vulnerable and ask for help, but at the same time, so much more in it and present than I think my generation was during that period of time. So I see a lot of hope in this emerging adult group to really be sort of advocates and have a lot of agency for their own life, and not just about them as individual, but from society at large.
Yeah.
So that gives me hope. And then again, I mentioned the sort of UNGA or the UN, the conversations around mental health. And of course, in the backdrop of this huge aid cut, and you can go on and on, that the consequences is really, really hard for organizations and for humans across the globe. But it's forced us, I think, in general, to start looking for even more better partnerships, because there's no other way of actually making change than collaborate, even if how hard and painful it can be. Now more than ever, I think there's a curiosity and interest in really working on partners that usually don't hang out, starting to hang out, and maybe I think by that there is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, so focus on the collaboration as one of the key sort of takeaways.
Yes, and hope. Don't forget the hope.
Don't forget the hope.
Yes,
I fully echo what you're saying. Annika, thank you so much for creating the movement. I think you're exactly doing that. It's fantastic what you're doing in this really, really meaningful field. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I can only admire your commitment, I think your passion, your energy in really making an impact and driving for positive change.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you are doing. So, and again, congratulations to your diploma. That was great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the insights you shared with us, and thank you for joining us today on the People and Purpose podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the listeners. Till the next episode. Thank you. Goodbye.